Hello again. Welcome back to another episode of The Works. I'm Jim.
I'm Diane.
House cleaning before we get to we're going to talk about hot dogs.
Well,
right?
more than hot dogs,
Well,
but
it's
yeah.
part of it. But, I did get a response, a little bit of help, and I've tried it. The my issue with kitchen trash cans and finding bags that actually fit, and maybe it's because we got it from IKEA. The dimension circumference of the trash can and any kitchen tall trash bag that I try to put around the perimeter just doesn't seem to work. The suggestion I'd gotten was to stretch those that have the drawstring built in.
Mm-hmm.
That seems to, that kind of works. And the nice thing about that is actually it adheres to the lining while you then put that other thing on top of it, which I don't know what that serves the purpose of, because if it's not on tight, long story short, that was great. I appreciate the help. And and also talking about a listener was how we go on about AI, and I probably won't stop going on about AI for a while, but the somebody had applied for a job recently and had been let go because of what corporate America thinks AI is going to replace in all these workers. But long story short, they actually had those attestations, or where you acknowledge things at the end of a application, like, hey, I'm a veteran, I've got a disability. Right.
Check the box of things that, whether they're trying to get affirmation or trying to weed people out. Sometimes it's hard to determine.
There's a new one, or at least it was something they brought up at as we talk about AI, the sign off, if you will, the section that says that you've completed this application and your resume without any help from AI. Now, the odd part is
most of these jobs want you to use AI.
And I was looking at the job description they sent, and indeed it was hey, we're a progressive company and we encourage folks to use AI to make their job easier. But yet, you're not allowed to use it to apply for the job, but you can use it. Which is goofy, because the whole idea of applying for a job is experience, and if you got experience with AI and can help you fill out your application, who cares? I can't.
Right. Well, maybe it was a gotcha, that you think you're not supposed to check it and you'll get the job, but maybe secretly they wanted you to check it.
Okay, that's what we're thinking.
To show.
Yeah.
I know. I don't know.
I don't know. It's a fair point. Yeah, I didn't mean
well,
to
and then the best part is you don't even get a real interview. You go through this AI interview, which I just don't.
Yeah, it's that'll be the next thing. No more are we upset with all the spam calls we get, but we'll be getting calls from AI bots and talking about what I have no idea what, but
right. Well, we get AI emails.
Oh, we do.
With people.
To Jim at theworkspodcast.com or Diane at theworkspodcast.com. You can always reach out to us, and we're in the process of revamping the website. And we're going to put a Reddit board up there, or if I can get the website to do blogs, because there's a lot of stuff that we talk about that, instead of having to do house cleaning, I could just stick it out on the web. I don't know. We'll find out. I mean,
right. Well, we want people to feel free to make comments and add to a thread.
Oh, absolutely.
Instead of doing it on each and every episode, if there's just one repository that,
Sure.
you can comment on. We'll figure it out.
Well, wow. And that kind of nicely leads me into I was going to introduce a new game that you're not aware of. I told you that I was going to do it, but it's...
You didn't hint at any of the things that you'll be talking about.
So the corporate... So when you said repository and all that bullshit, this is the corporate bullshit speak game. So what I propose to do, and we'll see how well this goes over, I'll take a famous quote from history that we all know, and I will put it through the corporate speak computerizer dingy and spit out what that quote would be if indeed spoken from one of these CEOs, CTOs that have their head up their ass and they have to say every other word.
Everything but nothing at the same time.
So,
okay, that'll be.
This will be fun. I hope. At least I envision that. In my mind, it's funny. So, quote is, strategically, this is after it's been gone through the corporate speakeasy or speak thingy. Strategically, our paramount concern must remain the affection. See, this is the word that I knew I was going to have a hard time with. Hold on a second. Let me bring this up. Let me see if I can. It'd be interesting if I can do this while we're talking. Hang on. And let's see. Efficacious. Thank you. That's the word I was looking. So back to the game.
Okay.
Strategically, our paramount concern must remain the effect. I just forgot. How do you say that word again? Here, I'll do it this way. Watch. Strategically, our paramount concern must remain the management of anxieties, thereby mitigating the potential for catastrophic consequences associated with the failure to initiate proactive measures to ally fear-based paralysis. One more time. So you have to tell me what famous quote this is after it's gone through our corporate speak transformation. Strategically, our paramount concern must remain the management of anxieties, thereby mitigating the potential for a catastrophic sequence associated with failure to initiate proactive measures to ally fear-based paralysis. And maybe I'll give you the answer to this one.
I don't know. Nothing to fear but fear itself.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Theodore
Ding,
Roosevelt.
ding.
Wow.
Woo! Now,
I
am, for those of you that don't know me, I am notoriously bad at history and geography. My brain is wired for math and science. So the fact that I got that one, I'm doing cartwheels here.
Efficacious. Okay, so I got the word now. Sorry. Efficacious. Sorry. All right, here's another one. We have successfully navigated a pivotal moment in the horizon of human potential, catalyzing a paradigm shift in the trajectory of our collective progress. We have successfully navigated a pivotal moment in the horizon of human potential, catalyzing and again, why am I having a trouble with this word? Hold on. Let's just do it this way. This is what AI is good for.
I'm ready.
Well, I know. I'm trying to get to that part. Sorry.
I keep thinking you can't tell.
Paradigmatic. Sorry. Okay. We have successfully navigated a pivotal moment in the horizon of human potential, catalyzing a paradigmatic shift in the trajectory of our collective progress.
For some reason, I was thinking if I closed my eyes that I might become smarter.
Well, I'll pick ones that I can pronounce, but this one, that's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Oh, I did not get that at all. Wow.
Okay. That's fine. Here's another one. Aligned with our organizational paradigm, we must acknowledge that endeavors will either be undertaken effectively or not, with no intermediate or partial effort imaginable, thereby incentivizing a results-oriented approach. Now, this one's a little tricky.
Oh, I think I'd have to see that written because I could not. I'm a visual person, not an auditory.
The famous quote is, "Do or do not, there is no try." That's Yoda.
Oh.
I know that was not fair. Not fair. But so, yeah, aligned with our organizational paradigm, we must acknowledge the endeavors that will either be undertaken effectively or not. Do or not, there is no try.
Okay.
And the last one, this one was kind of fun. Let's see if you can get this. Efficiencies demonstrated a statistical probability of success at a rate of 60% in a deterministic fashion.
Say that again.
Efficiencies demonstrated in a statistical probability of success at a rate of 60% in a demonstrated deterministic fashion.
If it weren't 60%, I would have said the glass is half full, but what?
This is 60% of the time. It works every time. It's Brian Fantano, yeah. When he's describing his signature cologne, Sex Panther.
That's
60%
awesome.
Of the time it works.
Works 100% of the time.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And I know we joked with this one. we're looking for sex daddy. That's the line in
European Vacation.
yes, when they're looking for the number 6 in a German town, but it's pronounced sex, right? So that one run through the corporate speak.
Bullshitter. Yeah.
We are currently engaged in a strategic initiative to identify and acquire a high priority resource designated as sex daddy to optimize our existing operational matrix.
I
That's
could
exactly
do
what
this
that
all day
says.
long.
And it's
You know, if I were back in an office job, I'd be sitting there and you might be thinking that I'm working, but I'd be doing this all day long.
and before we get
This
to
is way more fun than bullshit bingo.
yeah, that's a good point. I know you wanted to talk about. We've brought up this idea of starting a entire series of. And see, that was a snippet from the last one we did, and I obviously didn't mute that as I'm recording this one live. So that's live, and that's what happens
Right.
live. You get everything that we do without any editing. So sorry. That was hey, maybe that could be a new segment. We slip in a prior episode and never mind. Okay.
It's like finding the mac and cheese in the microwave. Hey, I like mac and cheese.
I like mac and cheese. I know before you wanted to, we've talked about a series of failed government, projects and why the government spends money on this. And you had come up with this hot dog thing.
Well, there were a couple things. There were certain projects, but in 94, there was government money spent to find the correlation. Well, they don't even say correlation, that consumption of hot dogs causes childhood leukemia. Hot dogs, childhood leukemia. I don't know. Did somebody get, some dice that had words on it and whatever two landed? That's what our study would be. But
and then later,
and then it was
years later that they rescinded this and they said they were wrong.
Researchers released studies. Well, no, this was after the fact. In 2004, their Children's Oncology Group study evaluated early childhood diets and found no confirmed link between hot dogs and lunch meats and leukemia risk. So they spent all this money. And now, don't get me wrong, the nitrates or nitrites are bad, and they could be a carcinogen in the body, but how do you specifically say that it caused leukemia? And then it further went on to say that, one hot dog a day increases by 18% of colorectal cancer in children. So then I was like, I had no idea that children got colorectal cancer. How often does that happen? Well, that led me down a path that it's only 0.2 out of a million. So it doesn't happen. So when it doesn't happen, you eat a hot dog every day. Yeah, you're that much more. How do you even measure that?
So,
I mean, my God.
Well, and so to your point, to look specifically at this study, and that, I mean, we hear it almost every day in the news.
This is good. Now this is bad.
Right. After some control group study of X number of people, and this one was based on the notion of that kids that ate more than a dozen hot dogs a month, this is where they started with it. And then it was also, they threw in the pregnant mom who had a couple of hot dogs a month. And to your point, the control group was so small and insignificant. And these types of things that the government spends money on, there's no vetting. Because later, once they came back and they vetted this, and they admitted that they were incomplete in their analysis, which maybe is them asking for more money to make it right. But in the meantime, you had all of these other groups, and it's interesting.
They all jumped on the bandwagon. And when it was disproven, you don't see any word of it.
It doesn't make the news like it did because, again, it's not sensational or what was the word that we had,
instead of fake news,
it was media hype.
Media hype.
So instead of the media hype, and we heard that term a lot in the 80s and 90s, because anything that was on the news was news. That was, that was the notion back in the day, that, you got your news sources, unlike today's nonstop barrage of commentary from, quote, your news people.
Right. They give you opinion and you have to figure out the fact.
Well,
versus back in the day, it was fact, and you would form your opinion based off of facts.
Right. Unlike, a single news anchor that,
you trusted.
Read you the news and had, 30 minutes to fill every day.
It's called a cappuccino.
These folks have to fill 24 hours of new content. I mean, that's not the easiest thing in the world. And maybe that's why everyone's doing it, trying to create content. Because let's face it, if those talking heads can create content, why not? But
right. And if you're first to report it, you might get it right, and you would have been the first one to report it.
Yeah. But back to your point. So the sad part is that the shock of, that headline, childhood leukemia increases due to the consumption of hot dogs. That's how you'd write it, right? And so when they discovered that it was not right, that they were wrong, that doesn't, that's the little segment at the end that gets 10 seconds.
Right.
Or if you're lucky, it gets anything.
And the big thing with these studies is that the confusion between correlation and causation. So here's a little snippet about this study. In general, nutritional epidemiology often deals with correlation, with two things happening at the same time, rather than causation, where one directly causes the other. It could be, we were joking earlier that, everybody that had cancer, they all brushed their teeth. So brushing teeth causes cancer. I mean, it doesn't, but it depends on what you want to prove, what you're being paid to prove. Because some of these studies are being paid by the people that want to promote an agenda.
But to your point, it's, like corporate speak, it's data driven. Well, again, I can make the data I can use data,
real data,
selectively. And so that's that I think becomes part of the problem I have with AI, is it can take whatever its objective is, whatever pieces of data that it can find. Now, again, the notion of having oodles and oodles and oodles of it, the big data was the word. What happened to big data? That was a big ass word a couple of 10 years ago, and now it's, it changes. But my point there is that you can certainly present data, ignore the data behind the curtain that tells you the opposite. But this data I'm showing you tells you this, and so
computers don't lie.
And so during this, it's interesting. You look back at some of the fallout from this particular, from beginning and end. So this whole hot dog thing with leukemia. During it, you had people like, for example, from Smithfield Foods, which is here in North Carolina. Their executive vice president came out and says, this is so typical of those people that are looking for what they call the carcinogen of the week. And then indeed, that's an excellent point.
Right. Burnt toast at one point, they said, was a carcinogen and caused cancer.
But
do you remember that?
Yeah. But this is the guy from what? Smithfield Foods, who makes what? About 1 million pounds of hot dogs a week. Now, of course, he's going to be on that side. But he goes on to talk about that it's with the media hype, it creates, again, that sensationalist, fact.
Right. You have an opinion one way or the other.
Yes. What ends up happening, or in this particular case, what's interesting is they also went on, this guy from Smithfield went on to say, the core issue of the hot dog is the nitrate, and said, and this is, again, it's clever how you can present data accurately to tell a falsehood. And he pointed out that the study implicated nitrates as the real issue. And of course, we do nitrate in itself.
It's in a lot of foods.
Well, his point was there are more nitrates in a bunch of celery than there is in hot dog. Actual fact. The problem is
the type.
It's not the same type of nitrate. It's nitrate sodium or sodium nitrate that is the preservative function of the hot dog. That doesn't convert into the amino acid that's being used by the body. A nitrate that's in celery is good for you. The nitrate, potassium nitrate, which is what Smithfield used, is not good. So, but yet you can say there are more, and indeed, technically, if you look at the word nitrate, there are more nitrates in celery than there are in hot dogs. Well, again, he's not being completely 100% honest. It's sodium nitrate.
It's not the same type, but
yes, and technically, so his point is, if you're going to blame nitrate for it, we use it in celery's got it too. So you're going to tell people that you can't eat celery now. So.
Well, and I'm sure if that came out today, then TikTokers would be all over it saying, boycotting celery.
Yeah. But, back to these failed, did you have another one?
Well, there were a couple, there are projects and then there are studies.
Yeah.
There was a study, where is it here? That Northwestern University, for more than 20 years, they received National Institutes of Health money to watch hamsters fight. So the project received more than $3 million over the course of the project. And some of these experiments involved injecting hamsters with steroids and then putting them together in a cage to see if the drugged rodents were more aggressive when protecting their territory, while others investigated whether becoming a trained fighter through weeks of face-offs made the critters more aggressive. But yeah, $3 million.
It reminds me of, remember there was these late night commercials back in the day, 20 years ago. There was a crazy guy that wore, plaid sport coats and talked a million miles a minute, and he convinced everyone the government's giving all away this free money. And he had in his book, it was kind of like the Yellow Pages in a way.
Oh, I vaguely remember that. How to get funding.
It was it Andrew Lesko? I'm trying to think of, and forgive me if it, but that reminds me of that time period when, you had this crazy guy who ultimately, all the things that he was touting as free money were nothing but basic government programs that if you apply for them, that right, you might get them. And in a lot of cases, it's I don't say it was fraud. It's kind of like what you're hearing in the news these days with all the COVID money
right,
that apparently, the government was just throwing money out at us all. And so
some went
a lot
to
of
dead people, yeah.
And someone, a lot of folks have said, and so I guess here's the issue. They're just being creative. They understand the strike zone, so part of it was, if you had repairs to do in your house, but you couldn't get out, and building materials were difficult at the time. But then, now there's, all of these investigations that have been netting, lots of indictments for people that fraudulently billed the government for things that they supposedly didn't do. But of course, it still begs the question to me is, who was the idiot that gave them the money in the first place?
Right.
Why do we spend the money investigating after the fact? I mean, we don't want to call, we don't want to cry foul only after it's done. And of course, in this particular case, I think a lot of this comes from the fact that, how long was this last government shutdown? We were looking for money everywhere. And maybe it's a function of that, but why are we spending all this extra money trying to get back the bad money that we supposedly were defrauded out of? But anyway, so to your point, it's just like these studies, there seems to be a portion of the government budget that, I don't know, it's up for grabs. Or again, maybe this is what lobbying is all about. Maybe this is where.
Well, and I don't understand. We don't do things to support small business. We have the small hot sauce business, and it's hard. It's very hard to do. But instead, we'll do these cockamamie research projects. Here's another one that the government spent $500,000 in federal grants to study how cocaine affects the sexual behavior of Japanese quails. And they had their reason. They were trying to look at how cocaine abuse affected risky sexual behaviors in humans. And the sex habits of quails are easy to measure in a lab setting. Ew.
Well, define measure. I mean,
I don't know. I don't know. It just,
Matthew Lesko, by the way. I was looking it up.
Oh,
That's the guy's name. I know I got the Lesko part right, but yeah, free money to pay your bills. In this particular case, what that was he, advertised, basically welfare programs that, if you needed help paying your rent or anything, I mean, that money was there. And he did this for years. He was selling this, this book online.
Right. If you know how to jump through all the hoops.
If you know the strike zone, but, and ultimately it was nothing more than him pointing out how you can apply for these things that exist. And it's, again, free. And I guess let's blame the internet. This is before the internet existed to a certain degree, right? I mean, it started in 75, mid-70s, and, went up until 1992, which the reality is we didn't have access to the internet. We didn't have access to, but like we had talked recently, government really didn't adopt a lot of stuff until,
right,
the millennium, late 90s, 2000, but you couldn't get this stuff online. And in essence, yes, he was just republishing certain material that the government had already put out. He was just combining it for you, making it easy in one,
right, and I'm sure he got a percentage of it.
Oh,
but
he sold the book.
It
was his thing. But,
yeah.
The one that it's still kind of the pet peeve for me is we spent all that time in the 70s being forced to learn metrics. And whatever happened to that, right? I mean, as far as a government thing, again, I don't mean to derail your...
No, that was a perfect thing, too. They say that they could save, was it $1 billion, if we truly convert over to the metric standard, that we wouldn't have to rebrand, repackage so many things. But
it's the reality is it's not just then, but it's billions of dollars annually
every year
that we are losing. For example, just one example I looked up. Anytime any foreign government produces looks for to purchase grain from us, or have a company come over and do a project or build something, and the United States is involved, when that request for proposal goes out from another government, they have to spend an extra amount of time converting all those metric units into imperial units. I mean, and again...
Right, and that takes significant work. When you put together a proposal, that's a lot of time invested, and you might have a template involved for what you do,
right.
and knowing you have to...
But what they do, and they admit this freely, is that they
need to use AI.
Well, can you think that's... stuff like this would be...
It's called a program. It's not...
But anyway, yes, so you talk about money... that we're still losing this money because it still
every
exists
year.
today,
mm-hmm.
that we never do. But I took some time, to finish that thought. So a lot of these governments, when they submit proposals, and if it's needing to be converted into U.S. units, they admittedly inflate the bottom line another 15% because of all that conversion cost.
Yeah.
And that certainly adds up a lot. I think anyone who's a handy person, I am sick and tired of having, the metric standard for sockets and wrenches, and then of course the U.S. standard for, it's painful, and we're in a way, if you think about it, I know we've complained about this. The IKEA kitchen that we have, obviously the conversion from metrics to English units was not consistent, because I swear to God, half of the we noticed it's off balance in many cases, and the standards that exist in the U.S., even if you try to convert them, they're not the same standards, because again,
right.
it's measure of units. It's not.
Example, the cabinets, they're not as deep as the standard cabinets, and apparently our plates are bigger than most European plates. So our Amerifat plates don't necessarily fit in there. They don't. The door doesn't close. The dishwasher, they built the cabinets over the dishwasher. So when we went to get a new one, I had to pop off the bullnose for the counter to get it in, and I need new countertops. And why do new countertops if I hate the cabinets? And if you give a mouse a muffin, you end up at Foot Locker. End of rant.
But back to the metric thing. When Ford created the Metric Conversion Act in 1975, he declared that the metric system would be the preferred system of weights and measures for the United States trade and commerce. But part of that was he permitted the U.S. to use its own customary units of measure whenever they wanted to. So what was the point?
Right.
So that act also established what they called the United States Metric Board, which had representatives from the scientific, technical, and education institutes basically try to form this consortium, if you will, on why it would be a good thing to have the standards. And again, part of what we were talking about, it makes life easier when you're talking to other countries or people that, especially in architecture, let's face it, a unit of measure is different.
Yeah.
Empirical versus metric. And I remember in the late 70s, we were forced to spend all that time dealing with
in school
with metrics. I mean, we were forced to learn it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but
it sure is a lot easier.
I mean, how much extra does it cost to have stores carry both U.S. measures and metric measures? I mean, maybe it's insignificant, on a computer day, but why couldn't we all have that standard? But what's interesting is that all happened in the late 70s, and then 1982, Reagan came by and said what? He nixed the whole thing.
Yeah.
That didn't make any sense. And then, of course, interestingly enough, I had no idea that George Bush signed Executive Order 1277 in 91, directing departments and agencies within the executive branch of the government to take all appropriate measures within their authority to use the metric system as the preferred system of weights and measures for the United States trade and commerce.
Well, that didn't go anywhere.
Well, I don't know where it went. They created what they called the ICMP, which was at that time the Interagency Council on Metric Policy. Okay? I dare you to look up ICMP. Because
no,
it's not that. It's the Internet Control Message Protocol. Point is that I don't know anywhere to find out about this Interagency Council on Metric Policy.
Right.
What does it do?
What happened to it?
What happened to it? But I mean, think about all the, again, back to the cost. You had to replace. Think about all the signs. 60 miles an hour is how many kilometers an hour?
Right.
You had to replace all those things.
Well, it even is bigger than that, because even our building standards, it's a 2x4. All the wood is cut into 2x4s, and there's certain things, the way that they are cut, they would have to cut things differently.
Well, and so
because you're not going to have a 9 centimeter by something centimeter, 9.2 by.
No, well, that's back to
because it wouldn't be an even number like a 2x4 or any other inches, foot, yards.
But it's still amazing that the fact that we still do teach both systems.
Yeah.
And with that said, and we really haven't landed on metric. I don't know why we're teaching something and we don't. So what they've done, and this is a tangible number, it makes sense. So if you think about all the textbooks that have to have a section on metrics, right? So that's extra printing, right? It's all the books that have anything to do with its math, geometry, it's chemistry, and so they've estimated that it's about $1.5 billion annually that we have to take whatever textbook that exists and then add that other piece because we're still stubborn, and I know we talked about this. Why not a standard? And it's interesting that all the stuff that's metric is all that, based on what, 10 days.
Yeah.
So this is where I tie it together as a comedian. We're looking for sex daddy. What is the one thing that is standard across the world? Time.
Right.
How did we all accept the fact? Now, and looking at...
And it's weird because that's on 60.
Well, I'll explain that. And this is actually interesting. So, which the whole unit of measure, or at least that, what they call a 10 base is based on, 10, 100, right? That's, This is called sexadecimal. So sexadecimal is based on the number 6.
6 as opposed to
So
hexadecimal,
we're looking
which
for
is
sex.
12. Yeah.
We're still looking for sex. It's all about sexa. So sexagesimal is a standard of 6s being used. But time, we'll just talk about time. But sexadecimal is the word that describes the unit of measure based on 6. In this particular case, early on clocks, time is based on the speed of the Earth revolving, right? And so again, what's interesting, we all have, and everywhere again, time is time. There's no metric conversion for time. We've accepted that. But point is, a second is measured at the apparent speed of which the Earth rotates. Which basically all this, what this all amounts to, is it came down to when they wanted to come up with units of measure for how to tell where you were, latitude, longitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what scientists came up with the fact that the Earth rotates at 86,400 miles an hour or a minute or whatever. That's the basic unit.
Mm-hmm.
A second, that's what it was. So if you look at 86,400 is a second. That's one unit of measure. And so the seconds turned into minutes, turned into hours, turned into a day. Then they reverse engineer this concept with in a day, there are 2 parts, right? There's a day part and the night part. Now, technically, and we all know that in the summer there's more sun, but basically, and again, if you look at sexagesimal being based on 6s and the fact that the speed of the Earth is 86,400 miles a second, 86,000 in 1 minute, which is 60 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So where 60 seconds comes into play is how many 60s are in the day. The day, if you divide it by 12 and you divide that by, you end up with 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 12 hours in half a day, 12 hours in the other half of the day, and that's how long it takes for the Earth to turn.
Right.
And that was a standard, so for what it's worth. And then I guess that there's Latin in there. The smallest part of a small unit is called pars mina prima, and that's where minute came from.
Oh, okay.
And the seconds is the second, or what in Latin is called pars minute secunda, and that is the second smaller unit, and that's where the minutes and seconds terms.
Oh, I had no idea.
But again, that's just the fact. My point
and
there is
I love
standard.
the geeky stuff.
Well, and my point there is we do have standards for that, and even up until the 70s, when scientists get together, there are standards like Kelvin, right? There are standards like BTU. We've talked about that before, but again, this whole unit of measure thing, it's right. And remember how silly empirical measure it was based on the length of the king's foot,
right? It became this,
and then the inch was the measure between the thumb and the first digit, the first knuckle. Yeah, so we're all a
little backwards.
And if we're wondering why there's such bad inflation, well, let's blame it on the fact that government's spending all this money on these extra.
Yeah, there was even one, the National Comedy Center in Jamestown, New York, received more than $4.3 million from New York State, plus another $1.7 million in federal grants. It's a museum for holograms of dead comedians. Yeah. You'll have holograms showing off classic comedians in their heyday.
So how do we know which ones?
Lucille Ball is in it.
Okay.
I didn't do a deep dive, but I was just like, what?
It's kind of weird. I guess, if you think of it, it's our version of what a textbook and an encyclopedia used to be, right? You'd have pictures of these people.
Right.
I get it. It's just that we're,
we don't want to do the work to be entertained. We want it to be nicely gathered for us. We just want to consume.
Well, that's the problem, is that we're assuming everything that we do read and we talked about this,
is correct.
And so if your assumptions are based on incorrect things, then, we're all in trouble. And AI is not fixing any of this. Why can't AI scour the internet for bullshit?
Right.
And and mark it as, an opinion, not a fact. But of course, then that's a whole free speech thing.
Well, they consider it a fact if the majority of people believe it, so it must be true. There's no. It's all weighted by how many opinions, how many results for this versus results for that, and that gives the veracity, which is not truly how it works, but that's what they're basing it on.
Certainly, it's perspective. Each individual's perspective may have a different perspective on what they've just witnessed. Right?
Well, and here's the thing, if you're scouring the internet for all these opinions and all that that people are publishing, that might just be their public persona's opinion. That doesn't necessarily mean that is your true opinion. Or you might say that's your opinion, depending on who you're around. So that there's no veracity in that. I mean, it truly doesn't mean anything.
When AOL first came out, I thought it was fun pretending, and maybe, I don't know.
In all the chat rooms, be somebody different.
I would pretend to be, and just debate people on, or, you'd go into and actually, because there was a funny story about that, and I don't remember what that promoted this. Did you find a room when people got online and they chatted? Did they look for a specific room? Or what was AOL?
I think so. I don't remember because I didn't really do that.
Well, no, bulletin board. Okay, let's go back to the bulletin board.
Back
days.
in, Ohio State days, it was, bulletin boards. You posted to the bulletin board about a thread that you're interested in.
Exactly. And Reddit's
it's kind of like a
now.
room, yeah.
And Reddit's to that degree. And maybe, see, this is where I run into a bit of a problem with, you can have fun on the internet that way. But then there's also now the scam angle, where there's too many people that are out there pretending to be something. Like
just to cause a ruckus.
Well, like in our case, we events for where we set up a tent and provide samples to our hot sauce customers, and samples to, hey, if you like it, buy it. And a lot of that information today is propagated through Facebook and again, all these online social media sites, right? And we've run in situations where scammers will just throw one out there for an event that they know that they can get people to, quote, apply for or send in, there's a fee for this stuff, because...
Right, and they'll say, the trigger is, if it says PayPal. Now everybody knows that you look for ones that are on Eventney, but... Yeah, I mean, people...
that makes it official. You realize as soon as Eventney people, or these people figure out Eventney's the linchpin, then they're going to start going to that. It just, there's a crackdown on that, but then the fact that the information that can be published doesn't have to necessarily be
true,
either promoted as real fact, it's fiction or not. It can be, and that's the dilemma, I guess. But again, it's free speech in this country. Or are you going to subject ourselves to the fact that, like other countries, that they limit internet, they block it, certain things, because you don't want to rile up the population,
the masses,
and that's.
But there are bad actors throughout the world that are purposely doing that.
Certainly, it's like, how did I guess I wonder, the January 6th people, how did they know to all meet to do the January 6th thing? I mean, who was the shitter on the desk guy, or who signed up? It's one thing to sign up for potluck and I'll bring the potato salad.
Yeah.
But I'm going to sign up to be the one that takes a shit on Pelosi's desk. And what other fun things did they have that maybe didn't go filled? I mean, how did that kind of conversation get organized?
Well,
did they have a big Zoom call?
No, I imagine it's you have Facebook groups, you have all the different socials. You have groups,
and Facebook's let this happen. If that's okay. Well, then again, you don't necessarily call it January 6th, and
right.
You have a double secret name for it.
Right. No, it used to be Facebook was you catch up with people that family, friends, and that's it. Sure. And now it's
so what's that QAnon thing? That has a lot to do with
Yeah,
Trump, right?
I don't know. Considering my feeds are all about hot peppers, gardens,
Well, and recently
cute animals.
yeah, and so
If
Trump,
it's anything political, I immediately say not interested because my opinions about politics and everything else, they're just that. They're my opinions, and it's not for sale. So, you can't decide a collective with me being a part of it.
with Trump being in the news lately, and I guess his age, and limps, got marks on his arms or hands or whatever. And recently, he had that incident with the Meet the Press interview where he just got up and left.
Yeah.
He's not that he's unhinged any more than he has always been. And see, there again goes the fact that I have that recording from the previous, the way at least to set up the audio board. And long story
I thought
short,
it was just creating.
No, the mood. I mean,
Yeah.
it's about. Technically, it's about that time. All I was going to say about Trump was that it was quoted that he at one point early in his life had made some correlation between or connection between the fact that humans are like batteries, and they have a certain finite amount of energy in them, and that's why he doesn't exercise. Which again is kind of, to me, it's funny because how you equate that and why he doesn't exercise and or waste his depleting value of energy in a battery that you can't recharge.
Right, if you have only so many heartbeats,
Well, that's what made me mad, because I've always jokingly made the comment about my heartbeat yours is to the point of comatose or coma-like at 40 and 50, and in my mind it's like you only have so many, and if men's men's are higher generally anyway, but I kind of had this adolescent approach of, hey, we got so many heartbeats. Not that was my excuse not to exercise. I just,
it's just fun to say.
Well, it's not fun. I guess for me, you try to understand mortality, and what are the things that can help prevent. And we were talking about all that genetic bullshit, but and that'd be a good topic for another day.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, just when he had made that analogy between life existence being like a battery, and if it's energy, why deplete it on
a marathon? Iron Man.
It's funny. It's kind of sad at the same time, because it's not the way it works. I mean, even I know that's not the way it works.
That just reminds me of my when I was in my 20s. I subscribed to the theory of mediocrity. That was before I started working out again, because I've done that. I've been active throughout my entire life. But my theory of mediocrity is if you get in extreme good shape, that's going to suck, because eventually you're not going to be in that shape. And people say, man, they really went to hell. Remember how good they used to look? So my theory is you just stay average, in the average lane. That way you can fluctuate up and down, and it doesn't matter because you're mediocre, and that's a safe spot.
Yeah. And then when 40 hits you, it all goes out the window.
Yeah, we're knocking on 60. Nah, I'm not even going to say it.
Okay. And then let me cue the music, and until we get together again, this has been another episode of The Works. I'm Jim.
I'm Diane.
See you next time.